You're worried about so many things that you're not thinking about these things. Hey guys, my name's Rachi. I started my channel basically as a way of helping students become better students. I post study tips and study content and how to learn material in different ways, but I also focus a lot on being a pre-med student and how I got into medical school. However, today I'm obviously still in my scrubs because I physically could not stop thinking about this video idea. I realized that while I am stressing about starting medical school and everything that I need to pack and get ready for, there are also students out there equally as stressed to start their undergrad careers. I wanted to split this video into 3 different sections and talk about just the most important things to take in your college move-in, things that you need in your dorm, in your apartment, and these 3 sections are going to be split up into number 1, school supplies, just different things that you're gonna need to actually use for class, for study. The second one is going to be just basic necessities, things that bring you comfort. Number 3, and the last one, is very important, and that's health and safety. I know that moving to college or university, even if you're not going that far from home, is super daunting because there's just so many things you have to think about. You have to think about, are you gonna have an apartment? Are you gonna stay in a dorm? Do you have roommates that you know of? Are they random roommates? Are you gonna be living alone for the first time? Do you have to find a way to pay rent for the first time? There's like a million things in your head at once, and just know that everyone is feeling the same way. Okay, so number 1 is school supplies. This is my favorite thing to talk about just because I always have FOMO. I love buying school supplies. I'm a fucking nerd. So the first thing that I would recommend getting, I think it's the most obvious thing, but a big backpack. No wheelie backpacks, unless it's like absolutely necessary. Don't get a backpack on wheels. Don't get a backpack on wheels. Unless you need it, there's like some kind of mobility problem, you can't have heavy weight on your back. I understand that. Backpack I personally had that worked perfectly for me was the North Face backpack. I'll put a picture up right here. I had kind of the light beige, almost white backpack. I will say that in college, since you're not really on campus the entire day and you're not just throwing your backpack around like you are in middle school or high school, let's say, it's not as prone to getting dirty, but this is a backpack that I got later on in my college career. I did start off with a darker backpack, if that helps anyone at all. Another thing that you can do, because you're not really gonna be on campus, 12 hours a day for the most part, is just using a tote bag that you can interchange. You're not really gonna be carrying a ton of books or anything like that, so do what you want with this information. Make sure that it's comfortable and that it's large enough to hold your notes, binders, whatever it is that you wanna study with. The rest is basically your typical school supplies, and it's very personal as to how you like to study, right? I'm not gonna tell you, oh my God, an iPad is a necessity. Go spend $1,000 on the newest iPad and Apple Pencil. No. I think that it's nice to have if that's how you like to study. If you've tried it, you've enjoyed it, or you've seen other people and you wanna give it a chance, go ahead. I don't think that it is a necessity, but I will say that it did make my life easier, especially being pre-med, because a lot of your professors in college, it takes some getting used to because they speak so quickly. There's a lecture up on the slide normally, and you basically just have to jot down whatever they're saying quickly before they move on to the next topic, right? I did enjoy having my iPad so I could download the PowerPoint and the lectures and annotate on top of that instead of copying everything down. That's not to say that I did not switch back and forth between paper. I love paper notes. If you guys have watched my videos, you know that I am a very big highlight, bold, table of contents, everything on my paper notes. I just think that there's nothing like paper and pencil. Everyone's different, but it's up to you. I actually just got up to show you my other school supply. The next thing that I wanted to show you are actually my highlighters. So I'm gonna show you just a couple that I have here, but you buy them in bulk, basically. I think the pack is like 24 highlighters or something like that. This is just an example of what some of the highlighters look like. So these are called midliners and they are double-ended. I literally talked to all of my friends about these and I'm convinced that I've gotten more than half of them to buy them just because I love them so much. So they are double-ended and they have this thinner side, and then obviously the other side has the wider, just regular highlighter. Different colored pens, different color highlighters. These are smaller things that you can pick up later when it's actually closer to you starting class or even in the middle of the school year. I mean, who knows how many of these I've been been through already. Enough about the highlighters. I don't really want to go in depth on a bunch of random school supplies that I don't think are absolutely necessary. The last thing on school supplies that I want to talk about, the one thing that I do think is necessary if you're studying, if you have roommates, I feel like this is something that a lot of people do have, but I'm just gonna say it anyway, is noise canceling headphones. So these are Beats. I did get them with, I want to say that I got these a while back with a student discount. If you guys don't know, Apple does have an education site where you can get a lot of things discounted because you are a student. I think all you have to upload is your school ID once you receive it, and you should get a discounted price for most, if not all of their items. But noise canceling headphones have saved me so many times. Sometimes your roommates are being loud. Normally I was the loud roommate. Sometimes you're studying with other people, you're listening to a lecture at the library. I just find that these are like the best investment ever. I take really good care of mine. I always put them in the case. So these are definitely something that I would actually highly recommend to have. Okay, the next one, past the school supplies, is basic necessities. I just wanted to cover some things that I feel like people forget. You're worried about so many things that you're not thinking about these things. Does that make sense? First one that I wanted to mention is a Brita water filter, especially if you are not comfortable drinking just tap water from wherever you're living. Tallahassee, for example, since I went to Florida State, did not have really good tap water. It tasted fucking gross. Okay, so it was the norm for you to go to people's apartments and they would have a Brita water filter. Again, not sponsored by Brita. We just really all had this, and it would basically filter out the water for you. It shines a little light and lets you know when you have to change the filter. Some people actually, instead of buying the water tank itself, they would actually just put a filter on the tap so that they could just get their water from there. That works too. But that was something that saved us a lot of time, a lot of effort, and ultimately a lot of money, so we didn't have to buy prepackaged water. I asked my roommates actually this morning, I was like, I want to make this video. What are some things that you think are non-negotiables that are super important for your apartment? And we kind of all agreed that a mattress topper is super important, especially if you're living in an apartment or even if you're living on a dorm, because usually they'll give you these like plain already set up blue mattresses that are hard as a rock. And that's not to say that people don't sleep on them anyway. Some people do enjoy a firmer mattress, and that's fine. Not me. So I did buy a mattress topper. I think that buying a mattress topper is way more feasible than going out of your way to buy a new mattress. This is another scenario where it depends on where you're going, right? Because some apartments are not furnished. I was lucky enough that in my college town, most, if not all of the apartments came furnished. So it came with like the bed frame and then just the mattress. So on top of the mattress, we put this foam, which is called a mattress topper, and it basically just softened the top layer of your mattress so that you didn't have to break your back. I even recommend getting maybe a bigger size than what you anticipate your mattress to be, and then you can just cut it. Ultimately, it's a sponge. It's very easy to like maneuver and shape, so that's what I did. Also, Lysol your bed when you move in. Lysol like the mattress. You're welcome. This last one I also don't think is an absolute necessity, but just something to consider, especially if you don't know the people you're living with, and that's to consider having a mini fridge in your room. This is especially true for dorms. I know that a lot of dorms, people do end up having a mini fridge if it's allowed, and then in an off-campus apartment as well, especially if you don't know your roommates, if you're not familiar with them, you can just have your own things in your room. Another thing that I could talk about in the basic necessity section is make sure that you have enough storage in your room. I know IKEA, Home Depot, all of these places sell these big plastic bins. These are bins that you can put under your bed, in your closet, just stack up different things, especially if you're short on space. So just keep that in mind. So the last section that I consider to be the most important is health and safety. Now, when you're in college, you're bound to go out with your friends. You're bound at one point in your 4 years to get sick, right? I was unlucky enough that my first year of college was when COVID was really bad. So I, of course, got sick, much like the rest of the world. But what really saved me was having a medicine bin. This was a big plastic bin, obviously making sure that things were not expired and were kept up to date. Keeping things like vitamin C packets, Advil, Tylenol, cough medicine, cough drops, things like that you don't even think about. I also had like ginger and herbal teas and things like that under my bed, just obviously sealed in the plastic. If I was sick, if my roommates were sick, we didn't have to hesitate. We didn't have to think of twice before going out out to CVS or to Walgreens. We just had things at home. Kind of on the same subject, you want to make sure that you have a first aid kit. Now, I'm not talking about a huge first aid kit, like you don't need a defibrillator, okay? But what you do need is Band-Aids, you want to have Neosporin, burn cream, just anything. Obviously, I'm not planning on you to have any cuts, any wounds, any scrapes, but you never know. College kids are stupid and it might not even be for you. It might be for one of your friends, whatever. Just, it's for the best. Part of this first aid kit at home, you should always have flashlights. Us personally, we have had multiple power outages and it's just something that happens. If there's a hurricane, if there's a tornado, whatever's going on, just make sure that you have flashlights, you have batteries. The next one that I want to talk about, also related to health and safety, is to put a Ring camera in front of your door if possible. Obviously, this is going to be limited depending on where you're living, if you're living in a dorm, if you're living in an apartment, and then who you're living with, right? Because some people might not be willing to do that. I would just feel safer having a Ring doorbell on the camera, or maybe a camera that looks onto the balcony or onto your backyard or whatever it may be, because I don't know, it's just, you're by yourself, right? And especially if you don't have roommates, you just want to feel safe and as safe as possible. Like I said, I'm not saying this to concern you or to scare you. It's just kind of better safe than sorry sort of thing. So I know some of the things that I had mentioned in this video may seem silly, but I think that they're just items that are often overlooked, especially when you're moving and you have so much on your mind. So hopefully this helps at least one of you think about new things that you can pack when you're coming into college, especially if it's your first year and you're nervous. I'm gonna link everything down below just to make it easier and more organized, but let me know if there's anything that I missed or anything that you don't think you would have been able to survive without in your dorm or in your apartment, especially your first year of college. Let me know if you guys have any questions down in the comments. Like always, I always try to respond. I respond pretty quickly, so okay, bye!